very warm welcome to the latest episode of the Travel Podcast, where we talk about our favourite subject. It's all things travel, and every week I bring you a brand new guest. This week I am very excited to introduce you to a lovely lady. Her name is Ashley Alex, and she has had such an interesting career in travel. She's former cabin crew for Emirates. She's also lived in different parts of the world as well, and currently she has a part-time job on the side as a travel and fitness influencer and blogger. So I cannot wait to dive deeper into her lifestyle and find out what life is like when you have that career. Ashley, welcome to the Travel Podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, Hayley. It's such a pleasure to be here, and thank you for such a wonderful introduction.
Well, I can't think of anyone better to join us on the podcast because you've had such an interesting career in travel. But for anyone who's being introduced to you for the first time, can you just tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Of course, absolutely. So I'm Ashley. I currently at the moment work full-time in London, 9 to 5. However, on the side, I'm obsessed with everything travel, fitness, and getting out there into the world and exploring new places, new countries, new cities. And it's something that I've done for a long, long time. Since I was probably a young girl, I've always been traveling, but my passion and my experience developed even more when I turned 21 and I joined Emirates airline as cabin crew. So I was based in Dubai for about 6.5 years. And it was that period in my life that I really found a really deep passion for everything travel, exploration, adventure, and discovering new places, countries, cities. And from there, it just has never left me. And I think once you get that travel bug, it's something that stays with you your whole life. So from that experience, I then did some backpacking around Europe, Thailand. I lived in Australia for a few years down in Melbourne, and then came back to the UK. And since I've got my 9 to 5 job, it's all about trying to fit travel around that 9 to 5 job. Obviously, we had COVID, which had a huge impact. So I wasn't able to travel for a few years, but I'm really starting to try and pick up again with city breaks and just discovering new places. So it's something really, really close to my heart, and it lights me up from the inside out when I'm out there in the world traveling and going on these adventures and discovering new places. It just fills me up with so much joy and happiness, and that's why I do it on the side, because I love it so much.
That's what I find so inspiring about you. It just goes to show that when you are passionate, even when you are busy and you're working full time, that you can still have those kind of dreams that are going. You can have the side hustle, as everyone calls it now, and that I know that's something that you're working on for the future, is being able to do more of the travel kind of influencing and blogging work. And you've already built up a really big following on your socials in quite a short space of time. So I've got no doubt that will become a full-time career for you at some point in the future. So Ashley, I love to know, with all of our guests on the Travel Podcast, a little bit about their childhood travel memories. So tell me a bit more about yours.
Oh, I love this question, Hayley. So when I was younger, I was very fortunate to travel to Disneyland in Florida, and it was one of my earliest travel memories is going there. I must have been around 5 years old, visiting all the different theme parks, seeing Mickey Mouse, and going on all the different rides. And that is probably my first memory of going on holiday as a young girl. And that was probably around the age of 5. We also used to go places in Europe, such as Mallorca. We went to Benidorm a few times as well, which was great with the family. When I was 10 years old, my father actually got a job in Singapore. So I travelled solo from the UK to Singapore when I was 10, obviously assisted by the airlines. And I spent a summer in Singapore for about 3 or 4 weeks. I was there, and I always remember that trip because I was so young, and Singapore was so different to any country I'd ever been to before in Europe or the US. And I just fell in love with the culture and the city. And since then, I've visited Singapore probably over 20 times now, so it really has a special place in my heart. But I'm very lucky to have travelled from a young age.
And is that, do you think, what led you to go into a career as cabin crew? Did it have anything to do with that flight that you took to see your dad and that experience? Do you think that made you think, I want to do what they're doing?
Do you know, it's really funny because when I was a little girl, that's what I aspired to be. Some little girls, they want to be doctors, they want to, there's all these, all the world is your oyster when you're that age, right? But I always said I want to be a flight attendant from the age maybe of 7 or 8. So I made my dream come true.
Oh, so you were 21. And what is I'm always so interested, like, what is the training like for cabin? Is it quite intensive? Because obviously there must be a lot to learn when you first join.
It's amazing. So I joined Emirates Airline. So they did everything. So I left the UK, they flew me over to Dubai. When I landed in Dubai, they picked me up, took me to my accommodation, and they had a whole training schedule set up for us. So the first day of the training, a bus will come and pick you up from your accommodation and take you to the training centre where you'll meet it's called your ab initio, which is the group that you will train with throughout your journey in Emirates. So every year when you're doing your refresher training, you'll all come together again. So the training was 6 weeks. It was very intensive. We did 3 weeks on safety and security and learning all of the different aircrafts we would be flying on, all the different aircraft configurations, where all the safety equipment were, all the drills, the procedures. We had to go down the emergency life chute into the water and do everything. So we did that for 3 weeks, and then we focused a little bit more on the service and the procedures around the service and the customer service and making sure that everything was to a high standard and for Emirates standards. So it was very intense, but boy, did we have fun. We had so much fun during that training.
It's so interesting to hear how it all works behind the scenes. Because of course, safety on board obviously a massive priority. So actually having that sort of mock safety drill experience of going down the the exit into the water. Wow, that's incredible that they train you to such a level that you almost sort of have to recreate an emergency situation just to know exactly how you would deal with it. Heaven forbid it ever happened in real life, but you can never be too careful. So that's really fascinating to hear. So, Ashley, you must have so many incredible memories, but are there any experiences while you were working as cabin crew in that role that really stand out for you?
There's so many that I could talk about on the podcast today, but if I had to choose one, I think one of the most surreal moments during my time with Emirates Airline was probably on a trip to China. So I was operating a flight from Dubai to Beijing. And when we get down route to our destination, we usually have around 24 to 48 hours to rest until we operate the flight back to Dubai. So when we landed in Beijing, some of the crew had mentioned that they wanted to take a day trip out to the Great Wall of China. And there was no way that I could pass up that opportunity because I may never get the chance to fly to Beijing again. So myself and the crew, we hired this tour from our hotel. I think it took us about an hour or so, maybe a little bit longer to drive out to the Great Wall. And when you arrive there and you get out of the van, it takes you a little bit, it's a bit of a walk to get to the entrance of where to get onto the wall. But as you're walking, there's markets all the way up. So there's people selling lots of different trinkets and gifts and memorabilia from the Great Wall. And there's just this buzz and excitement in the atmosphere. And it was a sunny day, it was warm and it was humid when I got there. And I remember standing on the Great Wall of China and just looking out into the countryside and thinking, how is this my life? Like, this is incredible, this moment. And you can see the wall for miles and miles and learning all about the history of like why it was built. And it was so interesting, and that was a real pinch me moment because that's not something that I would ever have had ever probably done unless I was with Emirates Airline. So that to me was a real moment that I'll never forget, is standing on that wall and just thinking, wow, this is
A
incredible.
massive perk of that job, isn't it? To have those once in a lifetime experiences that obviously, will stay with you for the rest of your life, which is incredible. With all your experiences obviously up in the air on all these long haul exciting flights, what tips can you share with us? Have you learned anything over the years that you think, this will really help people on their next flight if they just follow these tips?
That's a really interesting question, actually, Hayley, because I get asked this a lot in terms of, what's the any advice for long haul trips, flights, and my biggest recommendation, I've got a few. The first one is wear comfortable clothes because you have to be comfortable. You're going to be sitting in your seat for a long time, so be comfortable. I try to avoid alcohol on flights as well, and I know it's nice to get on board and have a champagne or have a little drink with your dinner, which I do sometimes, but avoiding alcohol because it gets you so dehydrated. And another tip I would say is to stay as hydrated as possible throughout the flight. Now, if you think that you're going to feel a little bit hungry when you're on the flight, my advice would be to book a seat towards the front of the cabin because that's who always gets served first during the service. And if you sit towards the back of the cabin, you're probably not going to have all your meal choices because they may have run out by the time the cabin crew get there. Another tip is to book an exit seat, obviously, if you want some extra leg room. The exit seats are usually around the toilet areas as well. So you'll usually have a lot of people standing around those areas. So although you've got the extra leg room, just be prepared sometimes to have a lot of people standing around, maybe having a chat on a longer haul flight. But yeah, that's my main tips. I think wear comfortable clothes, stay hydrated, try and avoid alcohol. And if you're super hungry, if you think you're going to be hungry, I would say book a seat towards the front of the cabin.
Brilliant. Never even thought about that, but you're so right. You don't want to miss out on your favourite food if you're sat right at the back of the aircraft. So I love those tips. Actually, so I'm really interested to know how you went from obviously a really exciting career as cabin crew, and now later in life you've transitioned and become not only a travel blogger and influencer, but also you've combined that with a love of fitness. So when did that kind of transition happen for you?
So when I was cabin crew for Emirates, Instagram didn't exist. It wasn't, this is how far back I'm going. It didn't actually exist. So it was all about Facebook back then. I've got albums and albums on my Facebook of all my travels and all the different destinations I visited. So when Instagram came around, travel blogging on Instagram didn't really take off for a good few years after the platform had launched. And by that time, I had left Emirates Airline and I was living down in Australia, and that's where I started to pick up fitness. So I came back to the UK and got a place in the London Marathon in 2018, and that's when I started initially it was a fitness blog. And then from there, my blog just grew and grew. And I thought, not only do I love fitness, but I also love traveling. So I'm starting to now talk a lot more about my travels, staycations in the UK, city breaks in Europe, and hopefully I'll be going further afield this year to Asia. So it's just been really organic, Hayley, in terms of how it's happened. And I think when you love something and you're passionate and you can really be authentic about what you do, it's just easy, right? It just is easy to do because you love it so much and you want to share that with your audience and you want to talk about it with everyone out there and share experiences. And that's really how it's evolved. So it's really picked up since getting my place in the London Marathon around the fitness and then slowly transitioned more into a travel piece. So yeah, it's two very separate times in my life.
It's lovely how those passions have all combined for you, though. That's absolutely great. And I think the two work really well together because so many people love to travel, but not everyone goes on holiday and wants to lay by the pool and drink cocktails, a lot of people actually incorporate their love of fitness or just being active and when they travel, don't they? So have you got any kind of advice for people about how you can incorporate any kind of fitness when you travel?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and I'm one of those people that is always active when I'm away. I mean, I would love to be able to just lie at the pool or lie at the beach all day, but I can't do it. I need to get up, I need to explore, I need to be doing something. So, in terms of tips and advice, well, the first thing that I want to say is take appropriate footwear. Make sure you've got the right footwear for what you want to do, because I have been caught out so many times with the wrong footwear, and I tell you, I definitely have paid the price for it. So I would say make sure you've got a really good, decent pair of shoes if you're going walking, exploring, depending on what type of holiday that you're on. I would say be creative as well. Like use what's around you. If you know, if you don't have a gym that you've got access to and you really want to work out, you can find some stairs. You can run up and down stairs, do lots of walking, get out and explore all the different parts of the city. And usually, if you're on a city break, you're walking around kind of anything between 15,000 to 25,000 steps a day anyway. So that in itself is a workout. But I would just say be creative and, you know, try and be as active as you can. And if you've got access to Wi-Fi, you can always go on. Like Joe Wicks is amazing. I love his workouts. I do them quite a lot if I'm traveling. So yeah, I would just say be creative. But my biggest tip is take the right footwear.
Actually, I'm so interested to find out more about how you go about creating your content, because I think a lot of people don't realise how much work goes into keeping up your social media, your Instagram, when you're blogging about travel as well. So how do you go about it and how do you make sure that it's like engaging for your audience?
So I think for me, Hayley, it's all about being myself and being as authentic as I can. And a lot of the content that I actually create is on the spot and in the moment. So when I'm doing my fitness or if I'm out on my travels, I'm pretty much keeping my audience up to date with what I'm doing there and then. And that's through stories. I ask for their advice through some of the interactive stickers, comments, polls, questions, and DMs as well. I've had so much advice from my audience around places to go, restaurants to visit if I'm going to a different destination or place. Just telling the story from my perspective, my opinions, what I love, what I enjoy. I feel like because it's very in the moment, a lot of people like following that journey with me, right? Because they can see me boarding the plane, they can see me landing in the destination, they can see what restaurants I've eaten at that day. And I think people like to go on the journey. I've had some really, really positive feedback as well in terms of, I did a recent trip to Lisbon and so many people DM me and said, I can't wait to go to Lisbon. That looks incredible. Like, any tips, guidance, advice? So I think taking my audience on a journey with me is very, very important. And I do that across most of my socials as well, even in terms of the fitness piece. It's very much a journey or a story. And I love connecting with my audience and sharing their thoughts, getting any advice, because they help me as much as I help them. And I've got a really, really great following as well. So that's probably my style and my way of creating content is very in the moment, very authentic, and yeah, just making those connections with the audience as I go along.
That's lovely, because it sounds like a real two-way street, as you say, even though they look to you as that kind of expert in travel with all your years of experience and knowledge. There'll be people following you that have been to the places that you're in that moment and can give you the restaurant advice or the top tips of where to shop and where to explore. And that is so lovely. And I think that's when social media is at its best. And that's one of the real positives about being online, is those interactions, those connections, and being able to help people, inspire people, and learn from people as well. And you obviously have got that right, and that's why your sort of account is continuing to grow and evolve and develop, and why people love watching you and seeing you on your travels so much. Ashley, your account combines your passion and your expertise in not only travel but fitness. So how does that work in terms of your content?
I think for my fitness is something that I do every day. It's a non-negotiable for me. So it's woven into everything. It's part of who I am in terms of I wake up, I like to go on my walks, I like to work out. And because that's so ingrained in me, it's really influenced the way that I travel. So when I do go on any trips or I book any trips, I tend to be really active when I'm away. So I'm always walking, I'm looking for new activities, whether that's going to be hiking, if it's going on sailing boats, if it's cycling, whatever the activity may be. I feel like my fitness has really influenced the way that I see the world and want to see the world. And it's given me a lot more confidence as well, I think, in terms of taking the active lifestyle into my travel. I'm not staying in the resort the whole time, which is completely fine, by the way. If people want to do that, like I sometimes would love to do that as well. I just want to get out there, explore the cities, explore the country and the place that I'm in. So that fitness piece and that active living and my day to day is certainly influencing how I travel and the destinations that I travel to as well.
And allows you to see so much and explore so much more than if you were to be relaxing in the resort. When you're getting out there and you're trying activities, then naturally you're seeing more, you're tasting more, you're having that really authentic experience in the destination. And again, your followers and the readers of your blog and everything can join in that with you, and I'm sure that inspires them to have more active holidays and travel and try activities as well. So that's brilliant. Actually, you've shared some really lovely tips already, but for our listeners, is there any other advice that you've got for people that want to maintain their kind of level of fitness and activity whilst they're on their holidays or their travels?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can definitely look at scheduling in some activity time, whether that's first thing in the morning, if you set your alarm a little bit earlier. It's always so beautiful to go for a walk or a run when the sun is rising. If you're close to a beach or some water, it's such a wonderful time to get outside. And personally, one of my favourite times to get out when I'm travelling and exercise. It's so peaceful that time in the morning. You can also see if your hotel has got any activities that you could join in. I know that some resorts or hotels will put on maybe some yoga or some Pilates, or even some water aerobics if you want to join in. And that's always fun. It's always fun watching the water aerobics when you go away and seeing everyone having a ball in the pool. So I think just taking a little bit of time to schedule, maybe even half an hour to dedicate that to some sort of fitness, which is what I would do, is probably my biggest tip. Although walking is huge, so if you're out and you're exploring cities, don't underestimate the power of how how important, how effective walking is, because you're probably doing a lot more steps than you actually realize because you're so busy taking in all the sights and the sounds, that walking is in itself is such a good way to exercise and explore.
That's great. I love those tips. And I always think when I'm away, I know that if I'm in a location where you can say walk to the nearest town, perhaps rather than take a taxi, that is a nice way to get steps in, and you see all the scenery en route to your destination, which I think is really nice. And I agree with you. I love walking because I think in general, nearly everyone is in a position to be able to get some steps in every day, all ages. You don't have to be super fit if you're at the start of your fitness journey, and walking, as you said, just has so many benefits. And I always think for your mental health as well. And I love your tips about those times of day when you do see the sun coming up in the morning. And it's also in a hot destination, it's a little bit cooler for working out as well before the sun gets too high in the sky and you get all sweaty.
That time in the morning is such a beautiful time because it's so peaceful. Like you say, it's cooler and it really just sets you up for the day ahead and puts you in a really great mindset that you're probably already in anyway because you're on holiday. But it's a really nice time to get out and see the world early in the morning.
In the fitness world, Ashley, there's obviously so much kit and there's all sorts of apps and everything can be a little bit overwhelming. I'm just interested on your perspective, if there's anything that you recommend when people are traveling that they might want to think about investing in to help them with their fitness while they're away.
Yes, absolutely. I think my first tip here is to keep it simple and don't overthink it. And it really depends what type of holiday or destination that I would be going on as to what I would take with me. So, for instance, obviously, if I was going on a beach holiday where it was a little bit more relaxed, I may just take a good pair of running shoes, a good sports bra, some shorts and t-shirts to go on my runs every day. However, if I was going on a more active trip, say maybe I was going hiking or something that was a little bit more required a little bit more specialized gear, I would really recommend taking a walking or a hiking vest. So Solomon actually do a really good, it's a running vest, but you can also use it for hiking. And you can store a litre to a litre and a half, 2 litres of water in your backpack with it. And there's lots of different pockets. And I feel like that's a really important piece of equipment if you're going somewhere really warm, you're going to be doing a lot of walking and you need to carry lots of water with you. So I would definitely say to people, have a look at the walking, hiking and running vests if you are going on a bit more of an adventure focused trip. And once again, I cannot reiterate how important good footwear is and how important it is to have the correct footwear with you because every destination's got different terrain. Um, so if I was to give one tip and one piece of equipment, I would once again go back to having decent footwear.
Ashley, I think that's such a great tip because with footwear, there's nothing worse than blisters, sore feet, especially at the beginning of your trip, because then that just prevents you from doing what you want to do. So I'm assuming you would always fully like wearing all your footwear before a trip, like never travel with a brand new pair of trainers because it takes a while sometimes to mold to your feet, doesn't it?
It really does. It really does. And they say in the fitness industry, because I've run a few marathons, and they say never run a race without a pair of shoes that have been worn in, because you will definitely learn the hard way. And the same comes to traveling. But I think it goes across everything in terms of like your trainers, your sandals. If you've got a pair of flip-flops, just wear them around the house for a few weeks before you go, because I have been in really bad situations with blisters in the past. So, and it's not nice because you want to enjoy your trip and you want to be as comfortable as possible. And if you're getting out there and you're being active and you're running and you're exploring and going on your adventures, it's important to look after your body and your feet and yeah, make sure you've got the right footwear. So that's definitely something that I would recommend.
Ashley, what would be your recommendations for anybody that wants to maybe have a trip away or a holiday that incorporates fitness?
So my recommendations on this would be to, first of all, do your research. Think about what type of holiday it is that you're looking for. So in terms of level and activities. So it could be that you're looking for something a little bit slower pace, such as a yoga or Pilates, and or something a little bit higher in pace, such as hiking or running or cycling. But there's so many tour operators out there that can cater to all needs in terms of being active on holiday. And I think that these tour operators are a really good way for people to also introduce themselves to different types of activities on holiday. So it may be that, you enjoy cycling in the UK, but you want to take it to the next level and explore a new city. So you join a tour and then you're with like-minded people from the start, right? So you arrive, you're all there together and you make connections, you make good friends. So I would say research lots of different tour operators. There's bound to be something out there that you like. One thing that I am really thinking about is doing a solo trip at the end of the year to Vietnam. It's a bucket list destination for me, and it's somewhere that I probably feel a little bit nervous traveling by myself. So I'm currently researching tour operators to see if I can join a tour, travel down there solo, and then I just know that when I arrive there, I'm going to be in a group with people who want to be there, who've chosen to be there, who have the same interests, and I think that's a really good way to travel is through tours and tour groups, especially if you're traveling solo like myself. And it's a really great way to introduce yourself to lots of different types of activities and try new things. So that's probably my biggest tip in terms of being active and exploring new destinations.
It's lovely to meet like-minded people. And also, I think, yes, there's something for everyone. If you're really super fit and you're already quite experienced at a particular sport or activity, you can indulge in that. And as you said, Ashley, you take it to that next level in a new environment. But maybe for people that are at the start of their fitness journey, it's quite nice as well. If you've never tried yoga before, going away to a yoga retreat, you learn so much during the time that you're there and from the other people that you meet up with, that you can then carry that fitness journey on when you're back from your holiday. So definitely think it's really nice. And of course, our Not Just Travel consultants are always on hand to help anybody that wants any advice, tips, and of course finding that dream kind of travel focused destination. That is what they're there for, so they can help match you up with the perfect tour activity or fitness travel holiday that is right for you. So do take advantage of their knowledge and their expertise. Ashley, so how do you think you help inspire people combine fitness and travel?
Well, I really hope my content motivates my audience, helps them realise that it is possible to get out there and go and explore the world. There's so much to see and do out there, and there's so much to be discovered. And I truly believe that life isn't made to be lived in one place. And hopefully, by getting up and being active and going on my runs and booking my solo trips, people can see that it is possible to have a 9 to 5 and then carve out a life of travel around that. And there's there's so much fear sometimes, especially around the solo travel piece. And I just want to show people that as long as you do your research about your destination, as long as you are very aware of your surroundings, you're cautious, it's always possible to excuse me, it's always possible to go out there and discover new destinations by yourself. People shouldn't be scared to go solo traveling. It's so liberating. There's nothing better than being a destination and doing whatever you want. It's your schedule, your time, your terms. So hopefully by showing my audience that it is possible, I am motivating people to get out and see the world and live their dreams and visit places that they've always wanted to visit, but they may never have had the chance to before. So I just want to show them that it is possible, that you can do it, and you will never ever regret traveling. It is one of the things that really just opens your mind, opens your soul, and it just gives you this sense of freedom like I can't describe. So I hope that I motivate and inspire people in that sense. My advice would be to just do it, just book the flight. And I know that's so cliche, but it's worked for me, and it just makes me so happy when I'm traveling, when I'm there and discovering new places by myself. So hopefully that comes through in my content.
Oh, it really does. I think you're so right. Book the flight, grab the trainers, and just go for it. I love it. Ashley, I know you're very interactive with your online community and your followers. I'm interested to know, do you ever get any feedback that people tell you that perhaps you've inspired them on their fitness or sort of travel journey at all?
I do, I do. I am very, very interactive with my audience. I have a lot of incredible followers and a lovely following. And I mean, I get DMs and comments quite a lot in terms of just asking for advice around fitness. I recently did a trip to Lisbon actually, and I was so overwhelmed by the response from my Instagram community. I had so many people in DMs who said that they loved watching my trip, and they were asking me for lots of different restaurant recommendation. Rooftop bars is always a good one. Everyone wants to know a good rooftop bar, watching the sunset, some cocktails. And yeah, I think my audience really, really were inspired by, well, I hope they were, with my recent trip to Lisbon. I took them on a journey I went on a tour bus one day, I visited some of the attractions, went to some different restaurants, different parts of the city. So I feel like they really resonate with resonated with that trip, and I always get really lovely comments around in my DMs and just asking for advice. I have a really wonderful following on Instagram, so it's lovely to be able to share that and hear other people's stories as well.
It's so nice. I think the interaction is what it's all about. And I think nothing brings to life a holiday experience more than watching somebody else live and breathe it. As much as I think online reviews are very useful, the written word doesn't really paint the picture in the same way that video content of somebody that you follow because you like them, you know, you feel like you know them, you trust them, and you bring it to life for people. You take people on every step of the journey, like you say, literally from the airport right through to the tour bus or the walking around the city or wherever it is, the restaurant and the food that you're eating. And people love that. That content is just so enriching. And I think it really does bring to life so much more in a more powerful way than kind of the written reviews and feedback does. So I think it's why the content that you do is so popular with people. They'll probably almost feel like they're there with you.
And I love that. I've got so many travel influencers that I actually also follow myself. And I always find that by exactly what you've just said there, Hayley, by watching other people's content come to life, that gives me so much inspiration because it's from a trusted source as well, right? So you know, and you can see where this person's staying, you can see the food they're eating, you can follow them on their travels, and that holds so much value to me as well when I'm thinking about destinations that I want to go to or that inspire me. And it goes across not just travel, but obviously anything on social media in terms of having that more personable and relatable touch to someone that you do already follow. And I go to TikTok all the time for recommendations. So if there's somewhere in Lisbon and I type in like restaurants in Lisbon on TikTok, you get so many recommendations and you can actually see it through video. So a lot of the times TripAdvisor, yes, it's great, but actually going online to socials and searching it and watching the videos can also be another really great way to research different places.
I'm such a visual person. I like to see everything. So even when I'm in a restaurant, I like to look at the food that's being served to the other tables. I'm so nosy, but when I see it visually, it just brings it to life for me. And I think that's a great tip again, once you've sort of booked your holiday and you're really planning out your itinerary and places to go and see, do turn to social media, do follow people like Ashley, look at what the travel bloggers are saying and recommending, because you can actually watch their videos and see whether you like the look of it before you make that commitment. So I love that. Ashley, I think you will have inspired so many of the listeners who are really intrigued and perhaps they even want to follow in your footsteps, because it is a really interesting career and sort of side hobby, side hustle, side business to have going into travel, fitness, blogging and influencing. So if anyone's listening and they think, wow, this is like a dream job, what would your advice be?
So if I was to give myself advice when I was starting out, I would say to myself, first of all, just keep it simple. Keep it simple and be yourself and be authentic, because being yourself is unique to you, and that's what sets you apart from everyone else. So you are the what you have, your personality is your USP. So let that shine through. And if you are starting out traveling and vlogging around travel, it's obviously something that you're passionate about. So by being yourself, that's going to come through in your content. And the second thing I'd like to say is don't compare. It's so easy to get carried away with comparing these big accounts, but everyone has to start somewhere. The first thing to do is to start. That is the first step. And I think it's easy to feel like you need to have all the equipment and all the cameras and all the expensive software, but you really, really don't. You just need something to be able to take your photos, take your videos on, time to explore. So that's my advice, is keep it simple, be yourself, try not to compare on Instagram, because everyone's on their own journey, and to get to where you want to be, you have to start somewhere. So don't be afraid, just start and just go for it.
I love that advice. Ashley, now before I let you go, thank you so much for all your brilliant advice. For any of our listeners in general who are thinking, can they improve their photos or their video, their content that they take just for them on their holidays, have you got any tips that you can leave us with?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, I just use my iPhone. It's all about lighting as well, right? So, golden hour is always a lovely time. So when the sun is rising or setting, the lighting is always really beautiful and natural at that time. But if you want to take high quality photos, you can always use your iPhone. And if you go onto YouTube, you can get 10-15 minute tutorials, which will show you how to shoot in 4K videos or 4K photos versus HD. And it'll tell you all the different settings you can use, how to set up your iPhone, looking at contrast, aperture. Now, they are terms that I had never heard of until I started experimenting with photography. So you can do YouTube tutorials, and the iPhones are really, really good to start off with any more advanced photography when you're on holiday. You can always take a tripod as well. So even if you're solo traveling, or if you're in a couple and you want to take lovely romantic couple photos, you can always jump onto Amazon and grab yourself a tripod and set that up.
There's some great little foldable ones, aren't there, that you can just pop in your bag or your case, and when you put that timer on, it gives you time to jump into the shot. Because especially if you are on your own, you want to capture those lovely, lovely memories. And I think a tripod is worth its weight in gold, isn't it? Because otherwise, you just kind of end up with selfies all the time, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things as well that you can use it anytime, so not just on your holidays. I have a tripod that I take away with me. I have a little ring light as well to help me with the lighting if it's a little bit of a darker shot. And then there's always the editing apps as well. So before I upload any of my content, I always put it through an editing tool as well, look at all the lighting and the contrast. So everything that you see on Instagram, it's, a lot of the photos have been edited as well. So there's so many apps out there that can help you enhance your digital snaps. But I think golden hour is my favourite hour. I think early in the morning or when the sun is setting, you can capture some wonderful images.
The lighting is stunning, so flattering. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us on the Travel Podcast. It's been so fascinating to find out how your career's evolved from obviously working cabin crew, all that training that you went through and your wonderful experiences going into 9 to 5 work, as so many of us do outside of the travel industry, but then how you've been able to combine that passion now with your influencer and fitness work. And it's really inspiring to show people who maybe aren't able to work and travel full time how you can still travel, you can still grow it into a business or something that you do on the side. And I look forward to continuing to watch all of your journeys and your platform grow. So thank you for sharing all your amazing advice, tips and your lovely stories with us today.
Thank you so much, Hayley. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. I could talk about travel all day, all night, so it's been wonderful. Thank you so much.
And where can people find you, Ashley?
So you can find me on Instagram under Ashley Alex _, and you can follow all of my fitness, all of my solo travels on there. And yeah,
Join the community. Thank you so much, Ashley. It's been a pleasure. And thank you so much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed all the top tips. I hope you feel inspired to keep that fitness up on your travels. So do give Ashley a follow on Instagram and be inspired even more. Thank you so much for listening. Please rate, review, share and subscribe. It really does help us. We appreciate you so much. And remember, if you need any help with your next holiday, your next trip, whether it be in the UK, abroad, whatever you're wanting to do, our Not Just Travel consultants are ready and waiting to help you. So get in touch with yours. And if you don't have one already, do not worry. Just head to the Not Just Travel website. We have a little postcode tracker there. Pop your postcode in and we will connect you with your consultant who is ready and waiting to help you with all their knowledge, all their expertise. It's a 5-star concierge service at no extra cost to you, so do take advantage of that. I've been Hayley Sparks, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.